The dawn crept over the high desert like a slow-moving fire, casting streaks of red and gold across the sky as Caleb, Mercer, stepped out of his small, pine-board cabin, stretching his sore arms from the long night of chopping wood, not knowing that by the next morning 100 Apache warriors would surround this very cabin because of what he was about to do, not knowing that one reckless moment of arrogance would turn his quiet frontier life into a storm of consequence he could never outrun. He simply breathed the sharp morning air and muttered about how boring the world had become, unaware that fate was coiling itself around him like a tightening rope. Caleb, a trapper by trade and a man prone to acting before thinking, had always believed himself stronger, smarter, and tougher than anyone around him, especially the local Apache tribe whose territory he lived on. He respected their skill but hated their pride, and in his worst moments he mocked their traditions, never imagining that one day his insults would ignite a fire bigger than anything he had ever experienced. As he walked toward the creek with a bucket in hand, he spotted movement in the trees, 3 young Apache men guiding their horses, laughing quietly among themselves, their braids catching the light like strands of black silk. They weren't doing anything wrong, simply passing through. But Caleb felt something inside him flare, a reckless spark fueled by frustration, loneliness, and the ugly habit of making enemies to feel strong. "Hey!" he shouted, stepping forward as if the earth belonged to him, and the 3 Apache turned with calm, unreadable expressions. They didn't reach for weapons, didn't posture, didn't insult him, only watched him with the quiet patience of men, raised to measure danger before reacting. But Caleb mistook their calm for weakness, and in a flash of foolish bravado he strode toward them, waving his arms, muttering insults under his breath about trespassers and wild dogs, words he knew were cruel, words he knew were meant to wound. The tallest Apache, a young man with hawk-sharp eyes, simply tilted his head and said in a steady voice, "We are passing through. We mean no trouble." But Caleb heard only challenge, fueled by some dark corner of his pride. He shoved the nearest one in the shoulder, a small, stupid push, but enough to turn the morning into something else entirely. The Apache didn't fight back. They didn't raise a hand. They only gathered themselves, mounted their horses, and rode away with expressions carved from stone. Caleb laughed as they disappeared into the pines, feeling smug, victorious, and utterly unaware that one of those men was the nephew of the tribe's war leader, and that by sundown the story would spread through the Apache camp like wildfire. He had not just insulted 3 young warriors. He had humiliated a family of deep importance, and in the Apache world, public humiliation demanded balance. The wind picked up as Caleb returned, a